Shubor nagaslem jong unongsan Hima.
Unang yalam kaliang persya u Dr. Mukul sangma. Ulaong ba omdan ba Pdiang yakum kani ka jing penbet pun kabalale da ka sorkar MDA. Bad ula pa PNI kanu kata ka Jaka kabala ay da ka Assam ya ka Meghalaya katkum kani ka jing penbet pun. Habayo banya keren bad u Dr. Mukul ubadai unang yalam barim ka Kongres ubala kelalong menta unang yalam ka TMC ha Meghalaya. Ulaong bana ka jingle kani ka sorkar. Udan kidaw ban ngen balada yakren syapang kata ka jing ay bat jing syem keliang. Kidai ban PNI kanu kata ka Jaka, kabala ay da ka Assam, lani kanu kata ka Jaka, kabalawan sa Meghalaya katkum ka jing mi na ka jing yakren penbet pun. Ulaong bakipat ba kidai ban sngau thu ya katenrai, bat ki jing jia ki bajia, kibala penlong bandan ka jing Ïakajia pun, hakaput ka Meghalaya bat Assam, kamtam hakitu ki khat artli ki Jaka, bala itu kum ki Jaka ba Ïakajia. Ulaong bakalong kabasay kadar menta bakipat ba kim Pdiang, bat namar baki kentat ban Pdiang, kimi ki Jaka ki badan hakajing Ïakajia. Ulaong bakipat ba kim Pdiang dalele, bat nakaliang ka jong kiru, kim Pdiang kum kajing yang lang bat kipat ba. Nalor kata ulaong baha Meghalaya ka kendaw ka siap kam day satya kabalalong try da ka sorkar, bat ka sorkar hi kam dan kendaw. Shushu ulaong bahabapet ya kasoskular, bat ya karukom le kasorkar, habasoy ya kasoskular. Omdan satya ka jingle da kabakhun, namar ba ya kibriyo ki badai bandan bentalang, om syem la kentop lang, bat ha ka jing ya kendo bat kipat ba, ki basa ha kishnong kapun, kalanang syai shushu, kumno la le ya kani kakam.
MOU has been signed between the two governments, and subsequent to that, having proceeded ahead to get the note from the Parliament itself. Now, we are all aware of one important part, that these areas of difference with Assam has been there for a long time, ever since the inception of the state. Therefore, the critical issues related to these and the complexities associated thereof with the issue has to be understood. I have tried to elaborately articulate this aspect on a number of occasions, keeping in mind the complexity, because we are talking about resolving a very highly contentious issue. When we talk about highly contentious issues, therefore, there should be most caution that you take on board all the stakeholders. And when we talk about the stakeholders, when we look at the problems associated which we want to resolve, is that we want to resolve problem which is contentious pertaining to the areas of difference along the Meghalaya-Assam border. I have cautioned the government that please have an in-depth understanding about the complexities associated with this highly contentious issue. That means indirectly I have told, rather cautioned them, look, I feel that you don't know. That's a caution I have made it. Rather than telling them directly that, okay, you don't know, I have cautioned them, it's better to have a due diligence, to have an in-depth understanding. What does it mean? Because from the approach that they were adopting, I knew that these people who were engaged in attempting to resolve these contentious issues have not had that exercise to have an in-depth understanding about the complexities of this highly contentious issue. Now, there are two things here from the way the things have developed. That either there is a malified predetermined intention from the government to arrive at a solution which goes against the interests of the state of Meghalaya and the people of Meghalaya, but benefits the counterpart. Or otherwise, the only other interpretation is that the incumbent government and the leaders thereof, the leadership thereof, have not understood the complexity of the problem. You know, because why I'm saying this, you look at the parameters. The parameters or the mutually agreed principles they quote: historical perspective, ethnicity of local population, contiguity with boundary, people's will, administrative convenience. Now, all these villages which are part and parcel of those villages or areas considered as falling within the areas of difference with our counterpart. Historical background is what? Even before independence, many of our Hima lands have been alienated because of various notifications given by the then British government prior to independence in the name of administrative convenience, taking many of our Himalayans and tribal lands with Kamru. So there has been already an alienation of land. And that is precisely the reason why, after the creation of the state, when the demarcation was attempted by the Survey of India, post-creation of the state, our forefathers, the leaders then, the people from across the state refused to accept, therefore, the areas of difference. That is the historical background. Okay? The historical background pertains to also the fact that all those areas which are being claimed by Assam forms part and parcel, an integral part of our tribal land. The land which our people have inherited from our forefathers. So this is the historical perspective. Now, ethnicity of local population. Now, what is that parameter which they have embarked upon when we are talking about ethnicity? All these people who are now being pushed to Assam, they belong to which ethnic background? Then contiguity with boundary. You are talking about the contiguity of the boundary along with the Hima lands. The land belonging to different CMCs, whether it is Malam CMC, or whether it is Nongspung CMC, or your Hima under the Sardarship of Nonglang Sardarship. So where is the people's will? And people's will on what basis? People's will also have to be based on the historical background, historical perspective. Given the fact that our land holding system itself is very complex, when you have a particular land of the Hima, now you have within the Hima, you have rights. You understand? There is a complexity which is associated with ownership in respect of our, say in Garwels also. If there is one particular clan land, there are also other villages within the clan land. They reside together. They protect the land together. They fight to protect the land together. There is a historical background. Because only the clan alone cannot fight when there is an invasion. When there is some enemies trying to snatch land. That's why there was a system where the clan always used to say, okay, stay together. Be in my Akhang land. So that in the event of any occasion where we need to fight, we fight together. So here, therefore, the complexity that is associated is that you have the responsibility to understand the territorial integrity and the need to protect the territorial integrity of our tribal land, the Himas, the Sardarsi, our Akhang land in respect of Garwels, the Doloi, the lands under different Dolois in Janjay. So these are complex problems which we have to understand. Now, therefore, this people's will cannot be that you ask the tenant without asking the owner of the land. It is as bad as that without asking the consent of the owner, you will ask the tenant. Responsibilities that every government has shouldered upon themselves. Now, therefore, what I'm trying to say is that there are two things. One is that the incumbent government and the leadership in the government has not tried to understand the complexities associated with this contentious issue. Another part is, another interpretation which is possible is that there was already a predetermined decision taken at the level of the two chief ministers to allow some of our places to go to Assam. Now I want to again come to this another level to substantiate my analysis of the understanding of the chief minister and people in the government in respect to this highly contentious issue. Now, what did the chief minister say yesterday? I read the news. The chief minister says that some of the villages which have been given to Assam were not part of the disputed land. You know, why you go beyond the disputed land. You are to resolve problems pertaining to the disputed land. The areas of difference does not include those areas where you don't have dispute. That is the reason why I'm saying that you have to understand the complexities associated with this and how you interpret. Areas which are not part and parcel of the areas falling under the areas of difference or dispute have been also listed and given to Assam. You have to go back to the census. There are villages which are included as per the census, general census. What are those villages which falls under Meghalaya based on this general census? And what are those villages which do not find itself in the list of the census villages in Assam? Have they taken into cognizance of those aspects? Say, for example, Salbari. Salbari is part and parcel of the village which is as per the general census within Mausanrud block. And it doesn't find its place in the counterpart, Boko CNRD block. And these particular areas do not fall under the areas of difference, that's why you don't have to indicate. Now, from what I can understand after my analysis is that Assam has prepared a list. Assam has prepared a list of what should go, which should go to Meghalaya and which should go to Assam. And they have just signed. They have signed. Have you got any such exercise, any copy or any presentation of the government of Meghalaya to indicate that they have done their job? What has been prepared by the counterpart under the leadership of smart, aggressive Chief Minister from Assam, Himanta Biswa Sarma, who understand the whole background of these the background of these areas of difference. I have said that's why they have interest to resolve while these people are in power. I have also said that in 2011, after we submitted, what happened? Assam was delaying. Assam was delaying. Delaying why? Because they knew fully well that at that time our government wouldn't have succumbed to this surrender, nor could have been we gullible to such maneuver, such manipulation. Now this government has been a victim of manipulation because of complete ignorance, because of lack of commitment, because of their lack of commitment to protect the interests of our people, our tribal people, our tribe. It's a very serious and unacceptable thing that has happened. You will be surprised to see from his own statement. He says that out of how many villages?
23.
23 villages, 21 have come to Meghalaya. He doesn't even know the fact or what, or why does he lie to the people? Now you see what has happened. In the high-hill sector, a place which is well within Meghalaya has gone to Assam. Place which is well within the villages which is well within Meghalaya and are not part of dispute have gone to Assam. Now, when we submit our documentation with all the revenue records, with various notifications that was issued from time to time, including the notification prior to independence, we have indicated, based on our discussion with our counterpart. Now, what is the basis of our discussion and submission of this exhaustive, detailed documentation to substantiate our claim, strengthen our claim, and at the same time justify our claim with valid documents? Is that we agreed to maintain status quo. That means we maintain status quo at the time, we are talking about 2010, that status quo to ensure that we don't go beyond whatever areas were considered as those falling under areas of difference. Status quo. That means there will not be any more additional area where we will consider discussion as areas of dispute. You don't go beyond that. And Another important thing that we discussed was that there should be no new settlement encouraged by any of the counterparts to ensure that the existing demography there, the status quo of such existing demography is maintained. Then third one is in order to ensure that the people in those areas of difference are not subjected to such situation where they are deprived of developmental programs. So developmental programs have to be allowed to be embarked upon and implemented in those areas in the interest of the people by both the states, but by informing the counterpart about any developmental initiative. So those were the parameters under which the overall agreed terms and principles were laid down. Subsequent to that, the Meghalaya is expected to submit all the necessary documents, revenue documents, to substantiate and justify our claim. This is exactly what we did. And based on this, we have confined the whole claim in respect of those which were considered to be in the areas of difference, not beyond. When you have two plots of land, and if there is a dispute for one plot, why will you touch the other plot? This is how we solve and resolve problems pertaining to any dispute pertaining to any land. Now here, you look at this, which is part of Meghalaya. If he says that he is helpless because of the documentation that was submitted during our time, why did he give those areas which forms part and parcel of the claim as per the documentation that has been submitted?